Hi, and welcome to my 2026 reading journal setup. This is the same document notebook I used last year, so before we get into the 2026 setup, here's a quick flip through of the notebook so far. I've never been able to fill out an entire notebook with just 1 year, so I plan to use this notebook for multiple. In the beginning are spreads that can be used every year, like my list of books on my physical TBR and my 2 main series tracker, one for the series I've started and another for series I own. And then there's an index which I still need to update, and all the post-it notes with my various keys. And finally, the beginning of my 2025 reading journal. I have a video on the process of setting it up, and I really enjoyed using it last year. It was definitely a bit of a learning experience though, to see what worked and what didn't. But I actually managed to keep it updated for the entire year, which is a first for me. I think keeping things relatively simple helped, so that's what I'll be doing for my 2026 as well. I love creating pretty spreads, but I learned over time that it's unsustainable for me. I just end up feeling pressure to make everything pretty and perfect, and one mistake will lead me to ditching the whole entire notebook. So this journal is pretty basic and filled with mistakes, but at least I'm using it. Another benefit of using the same notebook for multiple years, instead of starting fresh, is that I don't have to go through the whole paralyzing experience of being afraid of making the first mistake. I've made plenty in 2025, and will probably make a lot more in 2026. Because I filmed most of this video before 2025 finished, I had at least some blank pages before starting my 2026 spread, but I somehow managed to use them all. For my first planned 2026 spread, I have a simple summary page for my main reading goals of reading 70 books total, with at least 4 of those being from my physical TBR. I'm copying both the goals and spread from last year. I'm a little nervous about the goals. Normally, I'd like to aim a little higher, but since I just barely read 70 books in 2025, and didn't make as much progress on my physical TBR as I'd hoped, it feels safer to repeat them. I'm measuring them out in progress bars so I'll have a visual representation of my progress throughout the year, assuming I can remember to update them every month. And I left the rest of the page blank, so I would have room to add fun stats and notes when the year is over. Creating the summary page first means I have less work at the end of the year, when things tend to be more hectic. It also saves me the headache of potentially needing to allocate pages for my 2026 wrap-up, especially since I might have enough room left in this notebook for 2027, if I use the same amount of pages as I did in 2025. After a quick coffee break, I started working on my reading stats spread. First, I used a knockoff Mildliner to write in the heading in capital letters, and used a soft-tip Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen to add some basic calligraphy over it. This is a pretty old bullet journal heading style, but I like it because it kind of covers up how messy and uneven my handwriting can be. For the spread itself, I just drew a simple table to keep track of some reading stats by month. Last year, I drew a similar one and freehanded the lines. The wonky lines bothered me, so this year I'm taking the time to use the ruler. The ruler makes a much neater chart, but it's such a pain to line up and also wipe off to prevent the marker smearing across the page. This year, I'm mainly tracking the number of books read, the number of pages read, the number of physical books read, the number of ebooks read, the number of audiobooks listened to, the number of rereads, and the number of arcs read. I'm mainly tracking my reading in Storygraph, so this table is a little redundant, but it's nice to have a simple overview of my reading on paper. I assign each month a color with my Crayola Super Tips, and use those to write the month names. This color coding will also be used in the next spread and throughout the journal. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with the space left on the bottom. Maybe I'll use it as a notes section for anything I want to highlight. I'm not sure yet. For the next spread, I have a basic reading goal tracker. But first, another coffee break. It's a simple spread that I overcomplicated by using a ruler. It's 70 boxes to represent the 70 books I hope to read in 2026, along with a key at the top. The point is to color in each box with the color of the month whenever I finish a book. Not only is it another visual representation of my progress towards my goal, but I also just really enjoy coloring. I was really obsessed with the idea of having really neat boxes, hence the ruler, but that ended up just making my life more difficult. Especially since I had a dumb moment and forgot why I don't usually use this black Crayola Super Tip marker to draw lines. It smears so easily and never seems to fully dry. So when my sweaty hands touch it, it gets everywhere. But of course, I didn't realize that until I already finished painstakingly drawing in all 70 boxes. I got a bad feeling once I tried using this white gel pen to cover up a line I overdrew. It normally does a decent job of making the mistake less noticeable, but it just ended up smearing the line this time. I brushed it off thinking I just needed to let the marker dry a little longer, but then went to fill out the key at the top a few minutes later. The light blue marker I used for January smeared and became darker, and so did the pink I used for February. And it was at that moment I knew I messed up. Not only is the smearing ugly, but it also means that there's some black transfer on the colored markers that I need to color off. It's more work, and takes away from the joy I get from coloring in all the boxes. My brain was working overtime while I filled in the rest of the key. To avoid more smearing, I avoided the black lines, and didn't fully color it in each box. But I didn't like how that looked, so I needed another solution or else I wouldn't be able to use the spread. After a while away, I think I figured out a band-aid to this problem. At first, I was hoping the marker just needed more time to dry, but waiting 10 hours didn't seem to help. And then I thought of using stickers, instead of coloring in the boxes with markers. But I don't have a lot of stickers on hand, but I do have these Avery shipping labels. I ended up cutting them down to size that fit the dot grid, and coloring the labels the right colors and sticking them on the page. I used the key as a test, and it worked really well. It was just a little difficult to separate the sticker from the backing, but beggars can be choosers. It probably would have been easier if I had a Cricut machine with better skills at cutting straight lines with an X-Acto knife, but I don't. Regardless, it looks so much better than the smear mess before, and the boxes look better fully colored. I did have to go over the lines for the key again to make the sticker less obvious. I probably should have used a ruler to keep the lines neat, but by this point it was 2 a.m. and I was tired and wanted to go to bed, so I couldn't be bothered. I do kind of regret that now, but it's still much better than how it looked before. It's a new day. Here's a look at how the spread looks now, in better lighting after my late night emergency repairs. So the plan moving forward is to color the cutout sticker paper with the right colored marker and then stick the homemade sticker in the boxes. That way, I can still color and mark my progress without having to worry about the lines smearing. I already figured out the sizing to fit the dot grid and cut a few out, so I should be able to start using this spread as soon as I finish a book. As a bonus, since I'll be coloring on sticker paper first, and not directly on the notebook, I won't have to worry about the marker bleeding through to the other side of the page. Once I felt better about having avoided the potential issue, I decided to write in book numbers in each box, counting down. That way I can easily tell how many books I need to read in order to hit my reading goal. But counting turned out to be much more difficult than I anticipated, and I made a couple of mistakes. Who knew counting could be so hard? Whatever, they should all be covered once I read the first 12 books. After double checking the stickers and reassuring myself that yes, this solution will work, I can finally move on to the next spread. I took a break to find my hard-tip Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen. Unlike the Crayola marker, this pen doesn't usually smear. This spread is really just a basic spread to track the 2026 releases I'm excited for. Honestly, the most difficult part was making sure I spelled anticipated correctly. I used the same header as the other spreads, and to make it a little bit more fancy, I used a soft-tip Fudenosuke brush pen to write out the month names and made it part of the line to separate each box. I am terrible at keeping up with new releases, so I'm hoping this spread will help me stay on top of them. I'm hoping it will also save me the effort of having to repeatedly Google the publishing dates for sequels I'm looking forward to. I had some extra room left at the bottom, so I just created a notes section for any comments. Along with anticipated releases, I'm also tracking my book buying and book haul this year. Book buying is pretty self-explanatory. It's just a simple table to keep track of the date I bought the book, the title, the retail price, the price I bought it for, and whether I added it to my Notion book database. I'm really trying to limit my book buying in 2026 since I have so many books already on my physical TBR. I'm completely out of shelf space, and until I deal with that, it's really hard to justify spending money on new books, when I probably won't read them immediately. For books hauled, it's just a header I've been using with empty space at the bottom to write any physical books or ARCs I received as gifts. I want to keep better track of them so I can add them into my Notion book database in a timely manner. I was going to move on to the next spread, but decided to add some of my anticipated reads first. I only really have 2 upcoming releases that I'm excited for, and I had to look them up again. I ended up adding Rise of the Starling, the sequel to Shield of Sparrows, and also Archangel's Eternity, the last book in the Guild Hunter series, both in pen, since their release dates feel pretty final. I am also looking forward to the next book in the Alpha and Omega series, but it doesn't have a title or cover yet, and the release date already got pushed back once, so I added it in pencil so I can easily change it if it ever gets moved again. In the comment section, I used pencil to add some upcoming sequels without release dates, so I'll remember to look them up whenever I have time, like the next book in the Fourth Wing series. Next is my 2026 reading tracker and pages read spreads. I created the same charts for 2025 and really enjoyed filling it out every month. On the left side is a double line graph to chart how many books and pages I've read every month. I'm basically copying the graph generated by Storygraph in the stats section, but I like being able to see the whole year in paper. That's why I'm including it in this reading journal. Having the graph on paper makes it easier to compare year over year and notice any potential trends in my reading. It was a pretty easy spread to set up since I basically just recreated the one I drew last year. Since I already had the spacing figured out, I just had to draw in the lines and add the numbers and small key at the top. It's always interesting to see how the books and page count might differ from month to month, and how my reading habits change to reflect it. What's extra fun about this graph is that it doesn't just display monthly reading and page count, but also average book length read each month. I typically read books that are about 350 to 400 pages long, and so when I created the graph last year, I had the axis spaced out to match that, with one book being equivalent to 400 pages. That means if I stick close to the average of 400 pages per book, then both lines for the month should be close together. But if I read longer or shorter books than average, the lines for books read and pages read would be further apart. For the key, I'm using similar colors to the one Storygraph uses, so I won't get confused when I copy the graph each month. On the right side, I have a year in pixels type spread to track the number of pages I've read every day. Hopefully, it'll allow me to see any potential trends in my reading. Using a ruler, I drew out a grid for each day of the year. This was so tedious, but I couldn't risk any crooked lines since the boxes were so small. I wish I used another pen though, because this one was kinda dying, so the lines aren't as sharp. I guess that just adds character to an otherwise pretty plain spread. After the debacle with my reading goal tracker, I wasn't about to risk using another pen to draw lines. Again, it's pretty similar to the one I created for 2025, but I simplified the key a bit to include less colors. Last year I used 10 colors from a pack of Papermate flare tips and broke it down in smaller increments, but I didn't find that all that useful to see trends. So this year, I'm taking some inspiration from the reading tracker graph I just drew and created a key based on my reading history, instead of using more standard increments. For 2026, I'm using 5 different colors, to hopefully make it easier to see trends I care about. If I don't read anything that day, I'll keep it blank. If I only read 1 to 10 pages, I'll color the box a light green, so I can quickly see the days I wasn't in the mood or didn't have enough time to read. I'll use a darker green for the days I read 11 to 50 pages, which will probably happen when I feel like reading, but didn't have the time. 51 to 250 pages will be filled with a teal blue, which represents a decent reading day since last year I read an average of 100 pages a day, at least on the days that I read something. If I read 251 to 500 pages, basically an entire book, I'll use the blue felt tip, and if I read any more than that, I probably spent most of the day reading, so I picked one of my favorite colors of the bunch, this light blue. Hopefully this color coding will make it easier for me to fill out every month and identify the days I read a lot when we're not at all. This next spread is really similar to the one I created for my anticipated reads, except this time, I left some spaces between the boxes and used the month numbers to title each box instead of the month names. I just wanted to change things up a little so they're not exactly the same. I'll use the spread to track my favorite reads in the month. I was going to create a book bracket, but I never really enjoyed filling those out in the past, so I just decided to go with boxes instead. It's also an easier spread to create than figuring out the spacing for a bracket. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to find a way to print the covers out and paste them in, or if I'll just write the titles in marker or pen. Writing the titles would be easier since I don't have a color printer. Plus, I don't think these boxes would fit multiple covers nicely, but there should be enough room for me to write multiple titles, if I really can't decide on a favorite for that month. I messed up with drawing lines for the boxes, which is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. I clearly didn't draft this spread well because I overshot it when I was using the ruler. I think by this time I was getting a little tired and cranky, because that's not the only avoidable mistake I made. On the right side, I'm tracking some challenges I'm hoping to complete in 2026. The main one is a complete reread of the Guild Hunter series. since the 18th and final book is set to be published in May. Technically, this series is already included as part of my series tracker at the beginning of the notebook, but I wanted a space to be able to track my progress on the reread. And with so many books, I just needed a place to write out all the titles, in order, instead of just referring to them as book 1, book 2, etc. I also wanted a space dedicated to the series so I could use it as an overview and quickly see and refer to it later. The series contains an overarching story and plotline, but some books focus on specific couples. Because the series is so long, it can be hard to find the exact book I'm thinking of just going off the synopsis. I'm hoping to be able to find specific books easily, so I'm planning to write a short summary along with my review, and then add the page number it's onto this page. I guess I'm hoping that this can turn into a bit of a mini index for the series, if that makes any sense. It was supposed to be a simple checklist, and I originally drew it out correctly, and extended it. I got thrown off by the novellas messing up the book number count, and my poor prep work didn't help either. I guess I'll just use the leftover checkboxes for all the short stories from Nalini Singh's website and newsletter. I really enjoyed reading a lot of them, but it also feels weird to add them officially since they can be so short. At the bottom is just a header I've been using and space for me to write in what books I've read from my physical TBR. In all honesty, I probably didn't need to leave that much space, since I'll probably struggle to read 4 books. So I might add another section to keep track of the books I need to read from NetGalley. And finally, we've reached the last portion of my 2026 reading journal setup, drawing in all the calendars for each month. In 2025, I ended up drawing the months sporadically as they were completed, but that really ended up getting in the way of keeping my reading journal updated, since I couldn't prepare for the next month until the current month was completely over and added to the journal. So, for 2026, I decided to draw in all the months together in advance. I really enjoyed having this monthly overview in 2025. It's a really nice way to see how long it took me to finish each book. It's also a nice little index since it'll be one of the few places where the titles of the books I read are written out. If I'm looking for my notes on a certain book, I should be able to scan for the title in these spreads to figure out where I wrote the review, instead of having to go through all the review pages. And it's really quite simple to draw out, even though it can be tedious and time consuming. The month titles were pretty easy. I just used the pre-existing color coding and used the corresponding super tips for some quick messy calligraphy. It was a little annoying to make sure each calendar has the correct number of days and started on the right day, but that doesn't even come close to having to number each individual day. In all honesty, these calendars and titles could have been better, but by the time I got here, I'd already been working on this journal for more than 2 hours. And it didn't help that I was racing to finish before the sun went down, and so I didn't notice that I messed up preparing the August calendar until it was too late. I couldn't be bothered to think of a better way to fix it, so it looks pretty janky, but it is what it is. I was originally going to split the months up by quarter, with 3 months on a spread so I had space for a quarter wrap up. But I thought that might have been a little redundant, and honestly I was also feeling pretty lazy, since I'd already drafted the calendars for half the year before I got that idea. And since I clearly have trouble with spelling, on top of everything else, I just didn't feel like redoing them. Plus, I also wanted to save some pages. If I use the same number of pages for 2026 as I did last year, I might be able to fit in 2027 in the same notebook as well. But who knows? Maybe I'll read a lot more and write longer reviews. And that's it for my 2026 reading journal setup. All in all, this journal took me about 2 hours to prepare and draft, even with copying the spacing from some of my 2025 spreads. But clearly, I didn't spend enough time on that portion since I ended up making so many avoidable mistakes. The actual setup itself took me a little over 3 hours, not including the time I spent working on the Band-Aid to fix my reading goals spread. Hopefully, I'll have a fun time using these spreads and use the journal as consistently as I did in 2025. And that's it! Thanks for watching!